The unholy alliance between the Israeli regime and the two Arab powers, namely the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia, has provided a breeding ground for crime, especially in cyberspace. It hasn't been a long time since the world was rocked by a wide range of cyber attacks these countries carried out, thanks to Pegasus, the signature spyware produced by the Israeli company NSO Group. Now it's become clear that both Abu Dhabi and Riyadh have been using yet another spyware, developed by yet another Israeli firm, Candiru, undermining privacy and threatening freedom of expression.
الحادث اللي حدث مؤلم جدا لجميع السعوديين.
Recently, Asset, a Slovak internet security firm, revealed that a computer hacking tool made by Tel Aviv-based Candiru has been used to attack websites in some parts of the world, in particular the Middle East. In its detailed analysis, ESET wrote, "The victimized websites belong to media outlets in the UK, Yemen, and Saudi Arabia, as well as Hezbollah, to government institutions in Iran, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Syria, including the Ministry of Electricity, and Yemen, including the Ministries of Interior and Finance, to internet service providers in Yemen and Syria."
The links between Israel and the UAE regarding this technology are the same links that there are between Israel and the UAE politically. The UAE has recognized and normalized relations with Israel, and the Saudi government too, even though it hasn't fully recognized and formalized relations with Israel, it's been working closely with Israel for a long time. And they have the same interests in the region. Israel wants to protect the monarchies from and any kind of democratic revolution there, and the Gulf monarchies are siding with Israel in protecting the regime from any kind of uprising, of popular uprising or Palestinian uprising in the countries of the region.
ESET found a series of watering holes attacks between July 2020 and July 2021, in which attacks added malicious code to websites' JavaScript code to infect devices of targets of interest who were likely to visit those websites. The sites themselves, according to the cybersecurity company, are just a jumping-off point to reach the final targets. The primary goal of the attackers using the spyware is supposed to be collecting IP geocollection data and the targeted computer system information, and enabling them to hijack the infected devices. The targeted websites include, but not limited to, Middle East Eye, a UK-based news site that has a critical coverage of the Middle Eastern regimes, the site of the Lebanese resistance movement Hezbollah's Al-Manar TV channel, and Yemen's Al-Masira, a media outlet affiliated with the Ansarullah movement, and the SaudiReality.com, a Saudi website critical of the Saudi monarchy.
The Yemen situation, of course, is critical now for Saudi Arabia and the UAE. So, they're going to use this software and these capabilities to bolster their position, to strengthen their position in the Yemenis war. So, of course, anything having to do, and this war against the Houthis and with the Houthis in Yemen is a very dangerous war for Saudi Arabia, and the Saudi regime might really be threatened if they lose this war in a nasty way. So they're going to make sure that they will use every tool that they have to spy on and as intelligence, to gather intelligence from what is their enemy in a war now, the Yemenis and the Houthis.
The hacking spree undermines the privacy of the users and can dissuade them from visiting the alternative media. It can also pose problems for independent journalists, putting their lives in danger. In the words of the Director-in-Chief of Middle East Eye, David Hurst, this only further demonstrates the challenges of reporting independently and has serious consequences for the future of press freedom.
When this came out initially in April, there was some indication that wealthy private people in the UAE or Saudi Arabia can get their hands on this technology and use it against people all around the world. So what's happening is the technology itself is very powerful and very dangerous. And the cat's out of the bag in some sense. Once, these governments think they can control it, but once it gets out in the wild, it starts, itself can be stolen and hacked and used by other players. So it's a very dangerous thing from the point of view of dissidents and journalists in the hands of governments that are authoritarian or repressive, and every government in some way will be for its own interests. But it's also very dangerous in the sense that this is now getting out of control, even of central governments.
Back in July, Citizen Lab, an interdisciplinary laboratory at the University of Toronto, Canada, reported that Candiru's clients include the governments of Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, as well as Qatar, Singapore, and Uzbekistan. The lab researchers believe that the attacks on journalists and activists were carried out from Hungary, Indonesia, Israel, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE. The fact is, the Israeli regime had been providing the Persian Gulf autocrats with its cybersecurity tools long before the Abraham Accords. For example, back in 2007, the Emiratis recruited the Israeli-owned firm 4D Security Solutions to bolster the security of their energy facilities and to install a smart surveillance system in their capital city. Likewise, according to former Israeli Knesset member Errol Margalit, in 2012, Saudi Arabia received assistance from Israeli cybersecurity firms for its oil and natural gas company, Aramco. However, this cooperation has been taking an increasingly aggressive course in recent months, if not years. Israeli companies say their products are meant to help governments fight terrorism, but the reality is fundamentally different on the ground. They have been used mostly to spy on computers, mobile phones, and cloud accounts of journalists, activists, and political dissidents in the client's countries.
Of course, this is the line of the Israeli company, NSO, and the line of the Israeli government. We only sell our product to law enforcement and to governments that we know, really it's that we know are on our side, because nobody can claim that the Saudi government or the UAE government is a democratic government. But really, their claim is they're selling it to legitimate governments, quote unquote, for the purposes of, finding criminals and terrorists, etc. That's always what they're going to say. And then when something pops up that it's been used against journalists and dissidents, they're going to say, well, we didn't know anything about that. We can't control and it's the truth. They can't control what these governments do once they give them the software and the technology. And that's the problem here.
Giving double-edged software to despotic regimes under the name of fighting terrorism is a dangerous game to play. It is potentially a threat to every internet user, regardless of geography, nationality, or belief. Even the United States, Israel's staunch ally, has blacklisted both Candiru and NSO Group for acting against its national security interests. Inaction on behalf of the international community will certainly cause incalculable damage to freedom of expression.